empowering people to overcome obstacles and walk in their unique purpose. That's the real life message shared by our next guest, who is a survivor of stage 4 cancer, as well as the development of President Barack Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative. He's also the person behind that. Joining us this morning is college professor and international speaker and author, Dr. Eddie Connor. Good morning, Doc. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. What a pleasure it is to be with you today.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Yes,
But
indeed.
in these times of COVID-19, hope, faith, belief, those are the things that I think will propel us into coming out of this as better people. So I want to talk about your hope. You were diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. What was the first thing that went through your mind?
It is the whole aspect of fighting for your life when you're just beginning your life. And I'm a living witness that your tests are testimony, your misery is ministry, your mess is a message, your stumbling block is a stepping stone. And what God will do is you'll use your setback as a setup for your greatest comeback. He literally, in many cases, turns your tragedy into strategy. And I remember I kept saying the words, I can't breathe. And being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in 98, experiencing total healing in 2000. And ironically, 2020 marks 20 years of me being cancer free. It is something to where you realize, yes, the first 3 letters in cancer is can, but also last 4 letters in Jamaican spells I can. And having that mindset to overcome and believe that I can survive through the grace of God is why I'm here today.
Yeah, one of the things is surrounding yourself, I believe, with positive people, because I'm
Yes.
sure there may have been people that have said, Eddie, just face reality. Eddie, put your business in order.
That's right.
What would have propelled you? I know it's faith, I know it's hope, but tangibly, what are some of the things that you would have done during that time to get you through the process?
I remember because I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica as a kid, and during my bouts of chemo and radiation, I know I need to work on my accent a little bit. But I remember my bouts of chemo and radiation. The doctor told my mother, he said, take Eddie to some place. And without a doubt, she asked me, did I want to come back to Kingston, to Jamaica? I said, absolutely. And so I come back here. And I just get really refreshed and revived. I actually begin to preach my first message. Pastor asked me to encourage people. And ironically, when I needed encouragement the most, and I preached a message called Destined to Overcome the Odds. After I preached, the people in that Jamaican church prayed for me.
Wow.
And so between the Jamaican inspiration of Marcus Garvey, who said, up you mighty race, accomplish what you will, and spiritual healing and revelation, that became, in many cases, the impetus to say you can overcome. You can approach one treatment that you keep getting as one treatment towards total healing. You're just that much more closer.
Yeah.
And I'm an example of, yes, cancer made me cry, but it didn't make me quit.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about My Brother's Keeper initiative. What are its objectives?
Dr. King, who actually, ironically, visited Jamaica and said Jamaica made him feel like a human being more than any other place on the planet.
Yeah.
He mentions the quote, if we fail to live together as brothers, we'll perish together as fools. And so I developed a program called Boys to Books as I was a teacher in school. And oftentimes when young men open up a book, they close their eyes. And I began to really just have a burden and a heart. As we see here in America, they're building prisons based on 2nd and 3rd grade reading scores. And so I began to put something together as I was working in Congress with former Congressman Hanson Clark in the city of Detroit, focusing on the condition, the perplexity in regards to the plight, as well as the promise. And we developed a resolution, HRES 721, which really became an impetus for President Obama's My Brother's Keeper, focusing on literacy, focusing on opportunity development, focusing on the young men not being seen as pariahs and predators, but providers and protectors, not as stereotypes, but as prototypes. And so there's still a lot of work to be done, especially as we're caught between not just the pandemic of 1619, but also the pandemic of not just COVID-19, but also the racism since 1619. Young Black men and women are saying, like George Floyd and Eric Garner, I can't breathe, gasping for air, waiting to exhale. And so we're trying to remediate that. And police reform is literally the civil rights generational movement of the day.
It's 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 interesting because when we talk about our young men,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel there are targets in this racial war because our men have been. You mentioned Garvey, you mentioned Martin Luther King. I could go on
Mhm.
and on about strong black men that have mobilized our race. Where do we go from here, Eddie? How do we save our young men?
Poignant, powerful question. Dr. King wrote a book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? Malcolm X mentioned that's not a chip on my shoulder, that's your foot on my neck. In this instance, it's a knee that's become a noose.
Yeah,
I think what we're seeing in America, but also not just locally here, but globally everywhere, from America to Jamaica, is an outpouring of the fact that certain things must be remediated. The oxygen flow of freedom, justice, and equality in this nation and around the world is being choked from black bodies. Yes, we see demonstration, but we need legislation. Because demonstration without legislation is just cardio, it's just exercise.
absolutely.
And so putting pen to paper is very key and important, especially when you're thinking about public education. And we're seeing, especially this past school year, people are being passed on, our young people being passed on without even showing proficiency, promoted without proficiency. We're seeing a wealth inequality gap where white people have an $800,000 more socioeconomic status than the regular black household. Then you think about police reform, where those who are sworn to protect and serve do everything but that because black skin is seen as a sin.
Hmm.
And so I think when we begin to look at those things from a triangular aspect, we can begin to bring some remediation. I think we got to do that, especially economically with the black dollar, which I like to call reverse looting. And you do that through selective spending.
Hmm.
Black people supporting black businesses and
Yeah,
understanding
yeah.
that we are who we need to be and how we can overcome and become what it
Before
is that we are.
before we go, the last thing I want you to comment on is when we say, we say a lot about Black Lives Matter, but I said to
Right.
someone, if as black people we don't believe that our life matters or
Mhm.
see the value of our life and ourselves, that we will always be in a position of vulnerability and exploitation. Um, how do we move our people to that place where we don't just say, hey, Black Lives Matter, but that we believe that our lives have value, and so we want to educate ourselves, we want to better ourselves, and we want to claim our space in this world?
Yes, I think it comes from a place of when you think about Black Lives Matter, unfortunately, a lot of people don't think so. And when you think about it, it's just the minimum to affirm that our existence matters.
Yeah.
But I think the question, even when you go on a deeper level, is when will Black lives be deemed equal? When you think about even in Jamaica, Black Lives Matter, but there's a prevalence of skin bleaching.
Mm,
Colorism is a factor. And
mm.
so, us loving ourselves, us knowing our worth, not having a brand on our body to make ourselves feeling valuable, but seeing that value is not contained on the outside, but it's from within, and not competition, but collaboration with our brothers and sisters is really what's going to bring us to the next level. Like we say in hoods and in communities, from the streets to the suites, we all we got. And I think we got to internalize that and really make that plain through our actions, but also our development to say, Jamaican, last four letters in Jamaican is I can. I can build. I can believe. I can overcome. We can together because we're better together.
All right, Eddie. For folks who are watching and they want to connect with you, where do they find you on social media? Where do we find you?
I'd like to say the revolution will not only be televised, it'll be digitized at Eddie Connor JR, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And then also I would go to my website, thevisionsummit.org. We're putting together an empowerment conference, education, empowerment, entrepreneurship focus this July 31st and Saturday, August 1st, as a relationship to a digital conference, really connecting you to a space and a place of entrepreneurship and development. So thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to share right back in the Jamaica land we love, the city and the nation where I grew up.
All right, Eddie, thank you. The good blood running you, man. You come from
Yeah,
Jamaica,
man.
so yeah. All right, thank
There
you
it is. It's
so much
coming.
for joining us this morning, and all the best
Absolutely.
to you. That was Dr. Eddie Connor, college professor, international speaker, and author. Coming up next,